David, we're live.
Whoa.
You need your microphone.
Thank you.
I've done that before, by the way. I've talked without my microphone in front of me.
Yeah, that's a problem. I was more worried about the coffee.
Okay, well, you got to have coffee if you're going to do a podcast, right? Okay. Folks, we are going to do something very interesting today. I want to bring this up right off the bat, and then we'll get into it because this is going to be good. We are going to talk about how Bible history is repeating itself and it is becoming Bible prophecy. Now, we will get somewhere with this, and we have to start with some basics before we do this, but I think you are going to love the gist of this conversation. By the way, we are going to talk about the Amalekites. We're going to talk about the Romans. We might talk about a bunch of other people, but this is going to be a very, very good conversation. I think that you guys are going to have a lot of fun watching this one. But before we do that, I do want to bring up just a couple of things. First, I want to thank you guys who continue to support us faithfully. You are absolutely amazing people, and I just want to say thank you so much. I want to look at some of the super chats and the super stickers. You guys are, you guys are just such a blessing here. Brad Brunn, you are the first one, and you say it's 10 degrees here in Jackson. To quote Sheila Byers, it's colder than the stare of the nursery workers after a 55-minute sermon. That can only be a pastor that would make a statement like that. That's awesome. An American pastor for that much. And then Melinda, my goodness, Melinda, you are so incredibly generous. And we just love you. You're an awesome warrior, great fighter that goes to our church. She says, please lift up my warrior and his team for the IDF, the peace of Jerusalem, and return the hostages. Thank you, Pastor James. God bless you and your family. By the way, what a lot of people don't know about Melinda is not only is Melinda a warrior and a fighter, but she is the mother of a fighter. And she has a son that serves in special forces. And that's all we'll say. We're not going to get into that. But what he does is unbelievable. Special. And in the United States military.
It's special.
Yeah, it is very, very, very. Look, what they do is hard. And what their families does is even harder. And we'll leave it at that because I obviously believe in preserving the safety of our troops. And what these people are doing is just unbelievable. What they're doing for our nation, how they're protecting us, and everything that's going on. They are very, very loved, and we're very grateful for their service to our country, especially Melinda. And she has a family that comes from a long line of tradition related to all of this. Not just she herself. With her husband, who has served in law enforcement for a long time, but in lots of other different contexts. And we're very grateful for families like Melinda's. So thank you for your support. We love you.
And let me make a connection to that because, again, I can't help it.
Yeah, you're a vet. You have a family of vets.
Well, here's the
your
thing.
Children, your whole family.
Not only a family of vets. Think about this. All of Israel are vets.
Yeah, that's right.
And think about this, okay? Think about Melinda, which we kind of appreciate it, and thank you for being the source of strength for those who serve, which is really, really important. But in Israel today, the whole country is there. I mean, my nephew is probably flying back to Israel sometime in the near future, and he is a tank commander, and he will probably be, he's coming in from spending time on the mission field in New Zealand, but when he comes in, he'll probably, strip off his uniform, leave his kids at home, and go and sit on a tank in Gaza. And what I'm trying to say is the whole country is in that right now.
Yeah.
And then that's just part of our story.
And I'm telling you right now, nobody understands that community or recognizes it unless they're a part of it. And one of the things that's really amazing with the family that we have here that watch us is we have a lot of police officers, veterans, just a lot of really amazing people that watch us on a regular basis, and we don't minimize that. We're very grateful for that. And matter of fact, a lot of the good information that I've received comes from people who have lived in these worlds that we oftentimes talk about. And a lot of the stuff that I've learned on a whole gamut of issues have come from people that are experts in this field because they've lived it. And so the kind of insight that we gain from our community is pretty awesome. And it's just a blessing. It really is. It's great. Okay. I want to start our conversation with the understanding that there is a general premise in human history that we know. This is something that we've learned over the years. We've watched it in the Bible. And that is, history is very important to study. Because if we don't study history and we do not apply the lessons that history teaches us, then we are, in essence, bound to repeat those lessons.
I hear you.
And I will simply say that God, when he gave us his word and told us that certain things would happen, he made it very easy for us to understand and very easy for us to be able to relate to, because not only does he give us these prophecies concerning what's going to happen, he has effectively demonstrated and illustrated to us what actually happens when we see history not teaching us the lessons that need to be taught. And he also demonstrates to us patterns of behavior that we can always bank on. God doesn't stray away from the pattern of righteousness that he chooses to demonstrate to us because he is God and he is perfect, right? And there's many other things that we see demonstrated to us on a regular basis that I think are critically important that we just lose sight of. We just forget. Like we just completely like we don't even think about it. And when we ignore those things, we take those things out of context. And I'll give you a great example of this, right? The Prime Minister of Israel recently referred to the Hamas as Amalekites. Now, the pagan secular world hears that phrase and all of a sudden believes that the Prime Minister of Israel is calling out for the destruction of a whole race of people, right? First of all, he's talking about a political organization. He's not talking about a group of people, number one. Number two, the destruction of a political organization is the objective of most people who have political opponents concerning their opponents that they continue to fight. But that's beside the point. I think that what we have to do is we have to explain to people the significance of Amalek, and we have to be able to get them to realize why it is what it is. Now, I want to just simply say this right off the bat, okay, before we get into the history and we talk about this, right? When we talk about who Amalek was as a person, we know that he was the grandson of Esau, okay? I think we first read about this in the Table of Nations. I'm almost certain of that in Genesis 10. I did not have a moment to verify it. But what I want to say with respect to Amalek, just off the bat, just create a summary of the matter here so that everybody understands, and then we go. And then we'll go back and get into the history. We'll start identifying some patterns, and we'll talk about it, right? Amalek was made clear. God made it very clear to the people of Israel that if Amalek was not dealt with, then Amalek, in essence, would eventually destroy the lives of hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of Israelis, of Jews. There was a responsibility for them. God gave to their king, in essence. Saul is one example, but there were many that went before that, right? It. Yeah, like for example, we read about the time where Moses has his arms lifted up, right? That was a battle against Amalek. But let's just go back for 1 second and talk about this. The purpose for God saying that Amalek needed to be dealt with was because if Amalek was not dealt with, Amalek would have destroyed the lives of every single Jew. We know that. The Bible made that very clear. And by the way, in the Bible, we see patterns of what has happened when the Jews did not deal with the Amalekites. And when they did not deal with the Amalekites, they suffered immensely. They did. As a matter of fact, does anybody know, you might not even know this, the last descendant of an Amalekite?
Samuel, with David.
The very last descendant of an Amalekite, believe it or not, was believed to be King Herod.
Bon.
Some people actually believe that.
That's an interesting
connection.
And
there are some interesting connections to be said about that, especially understanding how many people died as a result of, how many Jews died as a result of what he did. Now, I will say this because I think this is kind of important as we go back. when Netanyahu says, and any Jew would understand this, Hamas is Amalek, what he is in essence saying as the leader of Israel is that we cannot have the same attitude that we had over the years in our early history concerning Amalek and spare their existence, because if we spare their existence, they will eventually come back and destroy us. He is not talking about a race of people. He is actually talking about the political organization, the group that is gathered with the sole purpose of the destruction of the nation of Israel. So what he is basically saying is he's saying we must destroy an organization that wants to destroy us, or history will repeat itself. And like the Amalekites did, we will suffer great persecution.
Okay, there's so many things to unpack here, and
and that's why I brought it all up, because I wanted to bring that up for you to start working on it.
The first thing I want to unpack is the terminology. Okay, let's start off with the beginning. When people say Hamas, okay, when Netanyahu says, I think it was the Minister of Defense said that the Hamas are animals. Israel was blamed for saying all the Palestinians are animals.
Yeah, which is not true.
Which is not true. So here's what I want to stress, okay? And again, we're going back to the World War II correlation, and that's really important. There is a difference between Germany and Nazi, okay? Did America go to fight against the Germans in World War II? Did the Americans go to fight against the Nazis in World War II? And when you say that we should, we should fight against the enemy until the enemy are gone, who are the enemy? And anybody in the United States of America, anybody who landed on the beaches of Normandy would say, our fight is with the Nazis, not with the German people. Now, that doesn't mean that the Nazis were not Germans. That doesn't mean that all of the Germans that does not mean, though, that all of the Germans were Nazis. So when the United States of America says we should devastate, we should completely ruin the Nazi government, we should kill all the Nazis, that doesn't mean that somebody's saying kill all the Germans. And this is something that people need to understand. But our enemies tend to turn that into something else. Two, maybe we should go back to the story of Amalek and tie it together and see why Amalek has become Amalek has become a symbol or a term or an element that we use in our culture to identify something that needs to be taken care of, that wasn't taken care of, and caused a problem later on.
Yep.
And that is as much a symbol as anything else. Don't forget, we are the people of the Bible. Biblical stories are part of our heritage, our culture, our language, and they seep in even into our politics. So let's go back to the story of Amalek and connect it to what happened, and maybe that'll make it a little bit clearer, because there's a lot of connections, there's a lot of correlations between what happened back then. And I think we're going back to Exodus, and the children of Israel have come out from a terrible situation, slavery in Egypt. We've just now broken the bondage of slavery, and we're on our way, to transfer from a nation of slaves and bond people to inheriting our own nation and becoming the nation that God wants us to be. And we are traveling in the wilderness. We're barely on the edge of survival. We're barely holding it together, and the different peoples in the area are standing in our way to achieving this promised land event. And one of those peoples were the Amalekites. And if you go back to Exodus 17, okay, there's the whole story of what and how. But before we go into the story of the Amalekites, I was just now reading it here a minute ago. And the first part of chapter 17 in Exodus is the story of Moses with the water in the wilderness, hitting the rock.
Okay, let me ask you this question as a technical question, David. Your headphones, are they getting too loud as I'm raising your volume?
No,
Are they too
I
loud?
think I'm okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I am
okay.
raising your volume for everybody so they can hear. Okay.
Am I talking too slow?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
So we are in the wilderness. We're trying to deal with what's going on. We're on our way to becoming a nation. We're on our way to fulfill God's promise for us in our promised land. and the Amalekites decide to get in the way. And I can't help but make that connection to what the Palestinians / the Hamas are doing, actually standing between. And again, this is something that didn't start on the 7th of October. It started way before.
But I have to stop you, David, for just a second, because there's a language barrier that exists here that I want to make very clear. Okay. Because when we use a specific type of slang, a very lazy rift in English, right? We talk about getting something out of the way or getting somebody out of the way. It's oftentimes associated with mindless murder, right? That's what it's typically associated with.
Okay.
So when you say get them out of the way, I want to make it clear that what you're talking about is remove the danger that exists to you and your people. Getting them out of the way is not the issue in the sense that we just want to kill them indiscriminately. When we talk about getting them out of the way, we are talking about removing the danger, the immediate danger to your people. And the problem is as long as an organization like Hamas exists, your people are in danger.
So the chapter in Exodus starts off with, and Amalek came to fight against Israel.
That's right.
Which basically indicates they didn't have to.
Right, that's right.
They didn't have to. It wasn't something that they were. I mean, we didn't come to conquer them. We didn't come to kill them. They came to fight against Israel, meaning we're on our way to our promised land. We're on our way to doing what we need to do. We're on our way to fulfilling God's plan. And a people group called Amalek, a nation group, a people group, and again, you can go back to their background, but basically they said we are going to inhibit, to stand between, to make sure you do not fulfill your promise.
Okay, and David, let me add to this because this is very important, and this is a biblical perspective issue that I think we have to talk about. And I'm just going to make myself very clear here. I have never heard anybody talk about this. I've studied the Bible for a long time. I've listened to lots of Bible teachers. I've never heard any Bible teacher talk about this. But I'm going to make a very bold assertion about something that I think is really important to make, right? Jacob and Esau had significant conflict with one another.
Yep.
Perhaps some of the most significant conflict centers around the fact, and this is all basic Bible knowledge, Esau sold his birthright to Jacob for some food. Okay? Jacob, through some manipulation and scheming with the help of his mother, who did not behave ethically or morally, right, fooled their father into giving him the birthright even though he was the younger son. And we know very clearly that Isaac did not want to give the birthright to Jacob. Isaac may have even been aware of the fact that this little deal was made between Esau and Jacob and did not want to give that birthright to Jacob. He was deceived into doing it, or tricked into doing it. He did it. And the conflict that existed between Esau and Jacob as a result of that was significant. Esau wanted to take Jacob's life, and this is, of course, why Jacob fled the area, and they had been divided for a long time. Matter of fact, Jacob had been gone for so long that he missed out on the death of his mother, was not able to be with her in the last years, which was a terribly tragic time. And in that time, I think it's safe to make this observation. I think it's safe to say that in that time, Esau's grandson was born. Esau's grandson was Amalek.
And he is the father of.
He is the in essence the father of the Amalekites.
Okay.
Now, I want to point this out because this is really, 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 really important to point out. Okay? Esau eventually came to grips with the fact that he was not going to experience the blessing that his brother Jacob experienced, but found himself satisfied because, as he told his brother, God had still blessed him with all kinds of things. But there was a sense of entitlement that existed within Esau, especially in the initial phases, for everything that Jacob had. Make no mistake about it, there was an element of maturity that Esau was able to hold on to that kept him from murdering his brother and allowed him to make peace with his brother and move forward. But I can tell you, Esau's descendants did not feel that way. And as a matter of fact, when we start getting into the Idumeans and we get into that whole relationship and how that ties into Herod, like we just talked about, there's a lot there. But let me just simply say this. Amalek undoubtedly had in his heart a very deep understanding in his mind that he was entitled to something more significant than what he had through his grandfather. He believed, I can almost guarantee you, something was embedded into him from his grandfather that he believed he had the right to what Jacob had. By the way, this would not be the first time in their family history that this happened, okay? The first time in their family history that this happened was Ishmael.
There you go.
And if you remember, Ishmael...
Ishmael is yelling out here and saying, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine.
He's entitled to it. He felt that way.
It comes to me, and God makes it very clear who it goes to and who it doesn't go to.
Absolutely. So the modern father of the Arabs would be, in essence, Ishmael. And when you take the Arabs, right, and you give them a clear understanding of what they feel entitled to, this is almost hereditary. This is almost passed down in their genes.
No.
From let me just say this: it's a family issue. They have years and years and years and years and years and years and years. They've been taught this is my right to this. This is my right to this. And eventually they forget about the story. All they know is about the division. So when Amalek came to do what he did, understand, Amalek had a conviction, guaranteed, that what he does not have was something that should have belonged to him. God knew that. God saw that. God warned his people about that, knowing full well that this was going to end up being a problem.
Okay.
So,
I can't help making a Balagan connection here because
there's a huge Balagan connection.
Okay, because and like I say, you can go to the linebacker head camera. You can go to the cable camera that looks at the action from the top, and you can go to the Goodyear blimp and look at all of this going on. And let's put it this way. From the head camera, the Amalekites believed that they should have been blessed. They believed that promise should have gone to them. They believed that the Israelites had mistakenly or not rightfully taking something that should have been theirs. And as a result of that, they believed that they were justified in not allowing the Israelites to move across the desert on their way to their promise.
That's right.
They were justified in standing in the way and saying, this is ours, not yours. We are not going to let you take it.
That's right.
I mean, doesn't it yell Arabs and Palestinians?
It is, but keep in mind that you say it yells Arab and Palestinians, but there is a genuine familial connection. The feelings that the Arabs have was passed down to them from generation to generation, starting as early as Ishmael. And in some sections, we know the Amalekites don't exist anymore, but the tradition was passed in that vein. Imagine this for a second. I would be shocked, and I think I can prove it biblically. I just have not finished all the groundwork for this. It's been one of those lifelong projects that I've just never really, I've been on it a little bit, and I just need to get my rear in gear and spend the 300, 400 hours I think I need to do this. But I guarantee you I can make a connection. I'm almost convinced I can make a connection between the Amalekites and the descendants of Ishmael. I bet you, not a physical connection, meaning a familial one, although there is a familial one, in that you're still talking about the descendant of an uncle, right? So that's not even an issue there. The issue is, I know that there had to have been a parallel of people group that existed in the time that the Amalekites existed, that both associated themselves with an understanding of entitlement, even though they did not carry They not only did not carry the promise, but they did not carry the same religious groups or people groups. By the way,
I'm going to make a big connection.
This is something.
Here. Get ready.
Yeah, and I want to say this. This is something that exists with the Arabs today. You have an Iranian who is a Shiite. You have the Hamas and most of the Arab world who are Sunnis. And although they come from different backgrounds, have different philosophies, different ideas, they're going to still come together for the common purpose of the elimination of the Jewish state because of the feeling of entitlement they have to this particular area.
So, as the Amalekites did, they're going to come out. They didn't just let this happen. Okay. And again, the whole basis of the story of the Amalekites is they could have allowed the Jews, they could have allowed the Israelites to go on their way towards their destination,
right.
towards their destiny. They came out to fight. They came out to say, we're going to stand in the middle of this. And I'm going to go into the Goodyear blimp right now. And again, I'm the Jewish element in this conversation.
It's a very
let's see-
important. Yeah.
Let's see if I can connect this, because we're seeing that God has a plan. God decides who is in the zone of his plan. If you are this, I have decided this is my plan, this is my promise. If you are in, you're part of that. Okay? But if you're not in that, then you are upset that you are not blessed the way you will be blessed if you are in the plan. Okay? And you can decide, wait a minute, no, we are the receivers of the blessing. It's not what the Bible says. It's not what God says. We are the receivers of this blessing. And I don't know if you're following where I'm going with this, because again, I'm the Jewish part of this, and I'm thinking about the early church.
Yeah, I know where you're going. I know totally where you're going.
I think about the early church who God made a plan, God made a promise, okay? God said this is the way, and the early church says no. That they don't deserve that promise. They don't deserve that plan. We will supersede ourselves on that promise, and we will take credit and take all of the results of being in God's promise. And as a result of that, we will get the blessing that we don't really deserve. And what they didn't understand is what they did was hinder God's promise, hinder God's plan. And again, and again, we can take it even further than that, this is a lesson for us. You need to be in God's plan.
Well, I'll just take it a step further. You mentioned it. This is the driving force behind replacement theology.
Exactly.
Replacement theology develops a sense of entitlement because of the current position of the moment, and then we go and we look at the faults, but what we don't stop to examine is the call of God. We don't stop to examine the blessing of God. And I want to take this a step further, because this is really important, right? We went as far back as Ishmael, okay? Then we stop looking at Ishmael, we look at Esau. Then we look at Esau, then we look at Amalek. Then after we look at Amalek, then we start looking at other characters. We even discuss for just a moment Herod. And the association, by the way, with the Roman Empire and the significance of who Herod was, specifically as a builder, and many of the things that he did, not only in his paranoia, but some of the things that came as a result of it. They all have very specific patterns established for us. And the most significant of those patterns is the idea that a sense of entitlement based on an immutable position, an immutable characteristic, drives the desire to want to be able to deprive from somebody else something that they genuinely own. Okay, by the way, what we learn from this is that this is Satan.
Oh,
Satan has done this all throughout mankind. As a matter of fact, if you look at what's going on with the Black Lives Matter type movement, it's I am basing my sense of entitlement on an immutable characteristic instead of what I would look at as being meritorious, right? I am now basing my sense of entitlement as the sole authority for why I should deserve to have something. I'll just tell you this. The Iowa caucus just happened, right?
Oh, you're going to go to the Iowa caucus?
Well, just to bring up a point that I think is really important, because this is crazy, right? In the Iowa caucus, and everybody knows this, okay?
These are interesting connections we're making today.
They're powerful connections because it shows that this is a mankind issue, right? This is a human history issue, okay?
Well, you brought up Satan. Remind me to connect it to Satan in a minute.
Yeah, because we're going to do that.
You do politics, I'll do Satan.
So listen to this. This is the Iowa caucus, okay? And what I want to do is I want to play a moment of Joy Reid. Okay, now I have a very, very difficult time with these people, okay? I have a very difficult time because they are, in my opinion, satanically inspired people, okay? But watch this. This person in the Iowa caucus, okay, Trump smoked the caucus.
Oh, yeah.
He won by 30 points.
I think, what, 51%?
But 51%. And the person who came in second came in literally by a small number. He came in by like 20%. So if you think about this, Trump won by 30% in Iowa, which, by the way, is a swing state. Now, you're like, James, what does this have to do with any of the things that we're talking about? Okay, let me show you. Because when we start getting into the idea, when we start getting into the idea of Esau and, I don't know what in the world's just going on here. Hold on a second. Let me cut back to this. Sorry. Okay, let me bring this back up. I don't
Where
know
are we?
what in the world. Let's do this right. Okay, there we go.
Yep.
When we get into the discussion of Esau and Jacob and Amalek and Ishmael and Israel, and we start talking about all this stuff, okay? It all goes back to a sense of entitlement. So Trump wins the Iowa caucus. These are hardworking people in Iowa that want to change in their country. Look at what the media says about why that was won. This is going to make you sick. This is a perfect description. What you read right here, what you hear right here is a perfect description of the ugliness of these satanically inspired people. Listen to this, and I'm actually going to do a show on this on Thursday. We're going to talk about this. But listen to this. Watch this.
This is a state that is overrepresented by white Christians that are going to participate in these caucuses, especially tonight.
Why are we going to white Christians all of a sudden?
Overrepresented by white Christians?
Overrepresented. In other words, there should not be more than a cluster of white Christians. She has to bring up white. Because if they're a black Christian, well, then it's going to be a little bit different. Because in her opinion, if you're a black Christian, that's fine, because what she calls a black Christian is, in essence, somebody like MLK, who was, in essence, a Marxist. Okay? That's what she's talking about.
So here's me, a white Christian. Well, Jewish Christian, but okay. And I'm saying, wait a minute. I'm twice not supposed to be representative.
You're worse than a white Christian.
One because I'm white and one because I'm a Christian.
Yes, and you're worse than a white Christian. You're a Jewish Christian.
I'm overrepresenting.
Absolutely. Listen to what she goes on to say. It's demonic. Listen to this.
Earlier today, reached out to Robbie Jones, from the Public Religion Research Institute, knowing that we were going to talk about Iowa, and this is a hyper evangelical white state. I asked him, what do they get out of supporting Donald Trump?
Hyper evangelical white state.
Again, well,
okay. I mean,
being even okay. So I know I'm a problem because I'm white, I'm Christian, and evangelical.
Yeah,
I've got 3 strikes.
Yep. And
now what?
And look at the demonic eyes of this woman. I'm not even trying to insult her. You can just see the satanic inspiration. This goes back to the feeling of entitlement because of an immutable characteristic. This is and she has
aired this.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? This is NBC, by the way, MSNBC. Okay, but I'm just going to tell you this right now. Can you imagine if somebody got up there and said, California voted this way because there's just a bunch of entitled black people? Can you imagine? Would that show ever be on? Would you ever like?
Okay, I'm sitting in California, and I just and I'm just going to say, California is overrepresented by Hispanic people.
Yeah. Or overrepresented by blacks. Or overrepresented by angry George Floyd worshiping blacks. Can you imagine? Imagine.
Again.
And this is straight racism. Listen what else she says. This is crazy.
So we know why he has to win.
Oh, listen to this. Listen to this. Listen.
Because he keeps losing, he keeps delivering losses and losses and losses.
She's saying Trump keeps losing and keeps delivering losses and losses and losses, which last I checked, winning by 30 points in Iowa, which, by the way, is the record in the history of presidential elections. There has never been a record bigger than that in Iowa's caucus. Matter of fact, the person who broke that record before, I think, was Bob Dole, who won by a 15% margin. Okay, so to win by a 30% margin is no small thing. It is a record breaker. In Iowa, we have never seen numbers like this, ever. Okay, and that's even with Nikki Haley spending money on people to buy their vote in the caucus, converting Democrats. And if you look at the numbers, right, if you'll just stop for 1 second and you examine the numbers of DeSantis spent on average he could have gone to every single person and given them $2,500 to caucus for him in Iowa, and that's what it cost him. When you spend almost $200 million, okay, to run a race in Iowa, you might as well give each and every single member $2,000 to go caucus for you.
I'm sorry about my how many. What's a caucus?
So to give you an idea of what this happens, and a lot of people are not familiar with how the caucusing works in Iowa.
I don't know if you figured. I'm not from here, but
yeah,
okay.
it's a very different picture. So what in essence happens is you go to very familiar areas from wherever you are. So you take all of Iowa, and they all go to their local schools. They go to their community centers. They go to places where they can gather. In some cases, you'll have 15 people gather there. In other places, you'll have 1,000 or 2,000 people gather there. And then what happens is in Iowa, you can either yourself as the person running in the election or a representative of you can go and you can speak to that group of people and make a case. So Trump had many surrogates. It wasn't just him. He himself went to Iowa and started talking to these people and convincing them to vote for him, right? But there were other people, Don Jr., lots of other people that went, just like DeSantis had a lot of people representing him. Nikki Haley sure had a lot of people representing her. They all had demon eyes as well. But they all went through and they started doing this. Vivek, by the way, had people representing him, and he worked very hard. That guy, I believe, hit every single county in Iowa, every single area where they were caucusing. I'm almost certain that he had a lot of people over there. He did a really good job. But here's the point. They all go and they make a case for why they should be voted for. Then those people on the spot, on a piece of paper, write down the name of the person they're voting for.
Really?
They take that information, put it in a box, it gets counted for, and then it gets reported in the main where it's all calculated. It's all totaled. So this is old school American, just this is the way it happens. And in Iowa, especially with the Republican Party, this is the look, if you win the Iowa caucus by this much, the primaries just need to end. You just need to say enough is enough. Donald Trump is the representative for the Republican Party. That's all I'm saying, because the bottom line is, and this is the reason why I'm saying this, the Republican Party, if we continue to run these primaries, we are going to suck every last dollar that we have to our name down. And when all that money is gone, we're not going to have any money to fight to make sure that things are being taken care of correctly, that the ballots are being counted correctly, that things are being... We need that money in the war chest, but we're not going to do that.
You're going to need two more. I mean, there has to be two more.
It's going to be, look... They should declare it. Every single member who's running, every single Republican who's running in the primary just needs to quit. That isn't Trump, because Trump, we know, is going to be the nominee. He is. Make no mistake about it. He will be the nominee. But the problem is are we? Well, I think he will potentially. There's a lot of caveat that goes to that, right? But the bottom line is he's going to be the nominee. Okay, DeSantis doesn't have a flipping chance. Yesterday, when everything happened the way it did, I guarantee you people on DeSantis' team wanted their money back, okay? No one, and Haley...
DeSantis run as the how do you say, the vice president?
No, he'll never be the vice president of the United States. Trump won't let that happen. Trump will never elect him to be a running mate. That'll never happen.
Why not?
Because DeSantis, although is an amazing governor and is really good at what he did, actually took too many runs at Trump and has demonstrated that he's not going to be loyal to him. So that just won't happen.
Interesting.
Yeah, it just won't happen, right? My guess is if Trump selects a vice president, I'm guessing he's going to select somebody that was loyal to him from the very beginning, and I wouldn't be surprised if he asked Ben Carson to run with him.
Interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised.
If not Carson.
And I want to be on record for saying that. I think it'll probably be Ben Carson. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Okay.
If he's smart, I mean, he is smart. Trump is very, very smart. You know, it may very well be that. It may very well be. I'm certain that it'll probably be someone like Ben Carson. Okay, but listen to what this girl says.
Okay, so I know I'm a problem because I'm white. I'm a problem because I'm Christian, and I'm a problem because I'm evangelical.
You're evangelical. Oh, okay, this gets worse.
Let's see. Well, why else I'm a problem?
Oh, this gets worse. Take a listen to this.
And he said the following. They see themselves as the rightful inheritors of this country, and Trump has promised to give it back to them.
Aren't we the rightful inheritors of this country? Wasn't this country founded on biblical principles?
Oh, and what's wrong with saying, I mean, these are the values that I want for this country?
Yeah, this country was founded on biblical principles, but so just you see the hypocrisy in this. This crazy woman, this nutso woman, right, believes that she has the right to this country because of something that happened to people that she's not even related to. She's a racist. She is the promulgator of satanic ideals. And she actually thinks that if you're a Christian and you're white, you shouldn't even be living in this country.
You're overrepresented.
Yeah, it's which, by the way, just so that you know, whites are the minority in this country now. They're becoming the minority in this country.
Are whites the minority?
They
already?
are becoming very much the minority in this country.
That's gonna
very,
be,
very much.
So that's going to be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, that's happening. It's make no mistake about it. It is happening. So, but listen to this.
All the things that we think about electability, about, what are people gaming out, or none of that matters when you believe that God has given you this country, that it is yours, and that everyone who is not a white conservative Christian is a fraudulent American.
So do you understand where anti-Semitism comes from? This is the same group of people that hate Jews. And the reason why they hate Jews is because they carry the same philosophy. These people carry the exact same philosophy. Who are you, Jews, to think you've got anything? Well, God gave you the land.
Well,
you're not entitled to the land. God promised it to you.
Let's tie this back to what we're talking about, okay? What she is saying is that you need to be outside God's promise
Yes.
in order to succeed.
Yes.
And basically, that's what the Amalekites say.
And in essence, you're nuts. Like, you're completely nuts. Like, you're nuts if you actually think that that this country belongs to you because it was founded on God-based principles. Can you imagine how satanic this female is?
So let's go back. Let's go back to where we started this whole discussion with. Okay, again, God has a path. God has a promise. God has a goal. God has a plan. You should be in that path. If you step out of that path, you should not succeed. You should not be successful.
Yep.
And you're going to look at the ones who say, wait a minute. I mean, I'm seeing somebody in the plan who is successful. The United States of America has been successful because it has relatively been inside God's plan, God's principles, God's ideals.
Right. 100%.
The Judeo-Christian creed. Now, this lady is saying, wait a minute. We should step out of that.
Yep.
We should step away from that. Now, here we go again, because look at those who stepped out of that plan and believe that the promise belongs to them, even though they're not in the plan.
And her philosophy is, damn you if you actually think any other way.
So we're going back to the Amalekites, and they actually stepped out of the plan, but believed that they were supposed to be blessed. And I can't help but tying it back to the beginning, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, in the beginning were Adam and Eve. And when Satan came to them and said, listen, I want you to step out of the plan, what did he say? He didn't say, we're doing this because he said, this is what you want to do. This will make your life better. You will be blessed if you step out of that plan.
100%.
And that's the way he used, that's the ideology that he used to motivate them to make the most terrible mistake that humanity has ever made. He said, you step out of that plan and you will be better blessed. And again, look at the Amalekites, okay? And I'm sorry to say, look at the descendants of Ishmael who believe that they can step out of the plan and they will be blessed, and they feel jealous.
100%.
They feel jealous of those who are relatively in God's plan.
It's worse than jealousy, David. Matter of fact, it's funny. I used to use the word jealous. I don't use the word jealous anymore. As a matter of fact, I kind of refuse to use the word jealous because this is what happens with jealousy, right? You can be jealous in a holy way. God says it. I, your God, am a jealous God. And so jealousy in some respects can actually motivate us to action and to do things that can be very beneficial, right? So for example, I can see you with a new possession. Maybe you get a new car, and I'm jealous of you. Man, I'm so jealous. I would love to do that. Well, then my mindset is, if I'm jealous over that, then what can I do to obtain the same thing? That's the mindset. The real word here is entitled. The real word to use here is that they are entitled. So it's not a simple jealousy in that I really want that, so I'm going to go get it. It's, I want that because I should have had it. You don't deserve it. So the way I'm going to get it is I'm going to deprive you of it and make sure that you never get it again, and that I am the one that receives what you have. That's the difference.
Now, let me scream this from my little corner, okay? What has the Hamas said about Israel all the way? You don't deserve this land. You don't deserve this place. It's not. And anybody who thinks about the problem with Hamas is a problem with this two-state solution, it's not that the issue. I mean, they have been offered a two-state solution many times. What they're saying is, this is our promise, this is our entitlement, this is our blessing. You have no right to take place in it, and when we can, we will stop you from receiving that blessing. And I can't help but go back to the first verse of this story that we're talking about, the Amalekites, and the first verse is this, and it says this. Wait a minute. Okay, we'll get there in a minute. It says, and the Amalekites came out against Israel in Rephidim.
That's right.
Meaning they couldn't sit and watch God's fulfillment of his plan. They couldn't sit and watch the Israelites go towards the promised land. Right. They couldn't sit and watch the Israelites succeed. They had to actively come out and stand between the Israelites and God's plan.
That's right.
And forevermore, they became known as a barrier or a hindrance to God's plan. That's when Bibi says the Amalekites, he means a hindrance to the Jewish people fulfilling their ability. And look what's happened. Israel has come back to the promised land as a result of God's promises, has come and rebuilt its country as a result of God's promises. We've crossed over the Jordan River and we've rebuilt this amazing nation. But there's the Amalekites who are sitting there and saying, no, this is ours, this is not yours.
Yeah, and that's the idea. It's the entitlement driving that causes that to happen. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing it happen in America. We're seeing it happen all over the world, because this is not a function of a single issue. This is a function of a satanic attack upon humanity. And it's this mindset that drives it. That's what drives all this nonsense with Black Lives Matter. That's what drives this nonsense with all of the wickedness and all of the ugliness that we continue to see around the world.
Go back to replacement theology.
It's the same thing.
Okay, let me kind of tie in another thing, all right? If you do not believe that God blessed the Jewish people, or you believe God blessed the Jewish people, but we have superseded that blessing, we have taken it over, we have bought into that blessing, we have done to the Jews what Jacob did to Esau. Okay, very interesting connection, by the way. Okay, we have bought into the blessing, which means the Jews are not in God's promise, which means that land does not belong to the Jews.
That's right.
Which means that Israel has colonized and taken that land away from somebody else, which means that we will support the destruction of the state of Israel.
Yep.
And this lady represents everything that is opposite from God-fearing, Bible-reading people.
100% true. She's a very wicked woman. She's satanically inspired.
Yeah, but
undoubtedly.
I'm kind of wary because I'm looking at it now and I'm understanding what she's saying, and I've never heard it said like that.
Oh, okay? I know. Isn't it brutal?
I'm understanding what we're saying, and we're seeing that. And this is maybe something that we need to kind of think about a little bit deeper. But this election is going to be an election between those who are following God's ideals, rituals, plans, ethics, morals, and those who say, wait a minute, God's plan, the biblical plan, is not important to us. In fact, it's the opposite of important to us. Let's move into a different way. And I think these elections here are going to be very, very critical for what's going to happen in the world.
Oh, I think so. And look, the elections have become to us a better functional tool to demonstrate how the enemy does what he does. Look, David, this is why I tell people all the time, the best geopolitical analysts and the best political analysts, period, should be pastors. They should be Christians. Because if you study the word and you know the word and you're able to identify patterns in Bible history, you are easily going to be able to analyze the things that are happening in front of you, especially in light of knowing what the Bible says is going to happen in the future.
Okay. James, can I make another connection?
Yeah, please.
Ready for this?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a place in the Middle East called the Red Sea.
I know where you're going to go with this.
Okay.
Yep.
And there is a group of people who believe that since they sit on the route, okay, they are entitled to decide who uses the route.
Well, America helped them feel that way.
Okay.
I just want you to know that.
I'm going to go with you, and there's a lot of this. Okay. And here's the thing: what took the kingdom away from King Saul? Go back to the Bible.
Disobedience.
Disobedience. And what was the act of disobedience?
Well, the act of disobedience in this specific case was that he did not eliminate as God had commanded him to his enemies. And that was the sole reason why he lost his kingdom.
So here's the thing, okay? We've got another enemy sitting on the route.
Oh, and let me rephrase this so we know. And that disobedience specifically, because Saul was disobedient in many other areas, but that disobedience specifically as his leader led to the suffering and the death of many in his nation.
Not only that, it led to the tearing
That's right.
of the kingdom from Saul.
Eventually.
Okay, I see another leader who is seeing what's happening and is not dealing with it. And maybe that's a symbol, and maybe that's a sign of what's going to happen. And again, the Bible teaches us these lessons again and again.
Not only is he not dealing with it, David, he's propagating it.
So,
He's helping to push it.
so might this be a symbol of what's going to happen?
Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. I mean, look, let's analyze another aspect of this whole Red Sea thing. When Trump left office, the very first day, January 20th, I believe it was either the first day or the 8th day. I'm conflating them, right?
Okay.
Either the first day or the 8th day. It was either January the 20th or January the 28th. A presidential statement was signed, okay, where basically we stopped recognizing the Houthis as a terrorist organization. Now, what that basically did was it took it off of our enemy combatant list, and because it did that, it disabled the hands of Saudi Arabia from being able to do what they keep trying to do in defending their own interests to their southern border and specifically to the Red Sea. Now, what our ignorant, foolish, half-cocked leader didn't think about was that it was going to tick off everybody. That was not just going to tick off Saudi Arabia. That was going to tick off Oman. That was going to tick off everybody that has any interest in the Gulf of Aden. It was going to tick off Ethiopia. It was going to tick off Somalia. And it was going to perhaps create one of the greatest levels of instability in a region where we want no instability, and that's the Sinai. Because Egypt, even under El-Sisi, was going to be ticked off. Why? Because you just jeopardized their operations in the Suez Canal.
Oh, no.
We all know this.
They're stealing billions of dollars.
They're mad as mad could be.
Okay.
And by the way, Egypt had a very, very invested interest in seeing peace between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Why? Because Egypt, even though they know they're going to lose business from travels through the Suez Canal as a result of the land bridge that's being created directly to the Mediterranean from the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula, what they did not, or what they knew that most people did not know, was that they would be producing way more money than what they were doing in the Suez Canal because of the promises being made by the members of the royal family of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and those people were going to come through on those promises.
Okay, so let's go back to our little kind of discussion here, and we're saying this. Okay, the Houthis say that they can stand in the way of God's plan. Not only that, they're waving the flag of we're getting in the way of what's going to happen.
100%.
They're putting themselves up there, and they're proud of that. Now, the country is wrecked. I mean, millions have already lost their homes and their lives. They don't care about their population.
Listen.
And you can bomb Houthi back to the Stone Age, and it's not going to hurt them. They're going to still do it.
The first time I ever heard about Yemen was probably 3 or 4 years old. 3 or 4 years old, I heard story after story after story after story after story after story about Yemen because my mom was a missionary in Yemen for many, many years. So I was raised with stories of the condition of that world.
No, it was fifth world way back then.
I never made the connection as a kid that my mom hung out on the southern portion of the Arabian Peninsula. I mean, to think about the kind of work that woman did in dedicating her life to teaching people about Christ. Yemen, we've always known, has been a literal poop hole. It's been a terrible place. And the potential that Yemen had to be amazing has always been there. Matter of fact, that portion of the Arabian Peninsula could be so much more beautiful than anything on a certain area in the Mediterranean that we're talking about. I mean, Gaza, my mom told me a time, there was a point in time when my mom, and she was a missionary in Gaza for a while. There was a point in time in Gaza where actually it looked like a portion of Sharm el-Sheikh. It looked like it looked like the Sinai. It looked beautiful.
So, again,
particularly along the coast to the south, the southern portion of the Egyptian border portion. But yes.
So the Houthis have taken up, ownership of Yemen, okay? And now they're using that as a base to attack the Western world. And they're using low cost they don't have a navy. They don't have an air force. They don't have anything. They have a couple of long-range missiles that they were given by the Iranians who are using this in the war, okay? And they are trying to stand in the way. And instead of dealing with this in the way that, should be dealt, we should have dealt with Amalek, okay?
100%.
The leadership is putting it off and putting it off
100%.
and putting it off and not really dealing with it and leaving a little and not really saying what's going to happen. And Saul paid a very, very dear price for that. I
100%.
don't know if the leadership today will pay a dear price. And here's a question. What do you think Trump will do if he comes into office?
So that's a very loaded question. That's a very, very loaded question. But I think what he's going to do is he's going to instantly go to Iran and do what he was about to do before he was reelected for a second term. And he's basically going to say, you don't have an option anymore. I am going to blow you back into the third world, into the fourth world, if you don't cooperate. And by the way, Iran was already beginning to back off at the time that Trump was getting near the end of his term, because they knew if he goes into a second term, then their life is going to be miserable for the next 4 years. He knew it. It's not even a question. Like we knew what was going to happen. As a matter of fact, that's why Putin never in a million years would have thought into going into Ukraine, because Trump was the one, and I'm not singing anybody's praises. I'm just telling the truth. I'm just telling you the facts. Trump was the one that made sure that NATO was going to shut their mouths, that they were not only going to not expand, but they were going to stop talking about the rhetoric of expansion, because he recognized the fact that the United States of America made a promise with a bunch of other nations to Gorbachev that we would not expand to NATO. Specifically the expansion of NATO with countries that were a part of the USSR. And now not only have we done that, but United States of America with a bunch of war-hungry animals like Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley and some of these other animals, all of these people are kicking and screaming and yelling, we want war, we want war, we want war. And their fastest way to do that is by talking about the expansion of NATO, specifically with Ukraine. That's why we're seeing the war that we're seeing. And by the way, let me just add this for a second while I'm on this little tangent, okay? I should probably say this. Because of the irresponsible actions of the current president of the United States, we have witnessed the murder, and I'm not even messing around. We have witnessed the active murder of probably close to 1 million Arabs, 1 million in the last year. But we're not talking about it. We're not talking about any of those Arabs that are being killed all over the world.
In Syria and
Yemen. Everywhere. Syria. Look, how about we not talk about any of that and just spend one moment and talk about Azerbaijan and Armenia. Let's just talk about that for just a second, which, by the way, Israel and Azerbaijan being strange bedfellows is the direct result of us messing with the geopolitics of the region. And the Azerbaijan relationship that exists with Israel is one that was created out of necessity because of the problem with Turkey, and it had absolutely nothing to do with anything related to what anybody thinks. But let me just simply say this. Millions and millions and millions of Arabs are killing other Arabs all over the world, and nobody even knows about it. Nobody even wants to talk about it. Let's not even get into all the Armenians that are dying. That might be one of the worst genocides ever seen in human history, and nobody even mentions it because they don't know about it. Yet, let's just say we believe the numbers of the lies of Hamas, who tells us that 30,000 Arabs have died at the hand of Israelis. 30,000. You understand that in 30,000 in 100 days or 110 days, do you understand that we have lost probably double that amount, if not triple, with Arabs all over the world, and
definitely.
no one won't say a freaking thing about it?
Because this is a war not about Israel. This is a war for something else. This is a war for God's plan and people who are lined up with God's plan. And let's go back to where we started this off. If you come out and fight against God's people, you're putting yourself on the line. You're putting yourself in the danger zone.
That's right. And these people are freaking out. Literally, they're freaking out everywhere. It is a freaking mess. It is. They are freaking out everywhere over this stuff, when in reality, they're not even paying attention to what's really going on. I would venture to say that for every single person that's dying in Gaza right now, every single Arab that's dying in Gaza, there's probably 50 somewhere else. Maybe more than that.
Again, the lying is unbelievable, and maybe next time we'll go into some of the details of some of the lies that we've been talking about. I mean, I got my stomach turned over about a story about a young Palestinian girl that everybody said she was kidnapped, but she wasn't. I mean, that.
But we see all that. Like you can see it. There's a way where you can go into look. There's a way that you can go into databases that exist for pictures that have been drawn with AI. And those databases have massive amounts of libraries of pictures that were drawn by AI, specifically in just Adobe's libraries alone in Gaza.
I mean, maybe should be the subject of our next event, because the proliferant spread of AI and the capabilities of AI are going to make a major shift in the, I'm going to say, the ethics of the world to come. And maybe that's a whole different subject. And again, you're pressing my science fiction button.
Oh, I'm telling you.
We can go there if you want.
Listen, the power that AI has is remarkable. It would make you sick if you knew the kind of things that are actually happening on that level right now.
Okay, but I want to go back to Amalek. And I want to go back to Bibi saying, Benjamin Netanyahu saying, this is an Amalek. This is our Amalek. We have to make sure that we deal with this in the appropriate manner. Now, again, I'm going back to, don't say Amalek. Don't say the Palestinians are Amalek, but I will say that the whole Arab world is standing between Israel and its promise. They have put themselves there. I think I read that 83% of the Arab world, not only the people in Gaza. The people in Gaza, 72% supported what Hamas did, according to polls. The people in Israel, Palestine, meaning the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, I think the percentage goes up to 80 or 79%.
Yeah, and 73% of every single one of them that live in Judea and Samaria said they would vote for Hamas today.
Exactly. If Hamas had elections, they would be voted in, which means the enemy sees that hurting, killing, mutilating Israelis as a positive aspect.
100%.
But even the whole Arab world, and when I'm calling the whole Muslim world, when I mean the Muslim world, I mean Turkey, Malaysia, Indonesia, all the Muslims in the world, 83% supported Hamas. That's 83% that support the killing, raping, and mutilating of innocent people.
Elimination of every Jew.
Okay, so there's a bigger picture that's going on. And now hearing this lady here, okay, saying, wait a minute, we don't want white Christian evangelical people to be a part of this election process because they're voting according to their ethics, their ideals.
Yep.
And these are ethics and ideals that we have a problem with.
Yep.
She has just now put herself in the shoes of Amalek.
100%. 100%. That's my whole point. It's the whole reason why I entitled the show today, Bible History is About to Repeat Itself. Because this is exactly what's going on. This is the satanic ploy. Look, we had this talk in private. And I think I have no problem being very public about this, right? We both have talked about this and we see it. People are getting tired about hearing the same facts over and over and over and over again about what's going on with Israel. But you know what they're not going to be tired of hearing? They're not going to be tired of watching us sit here and exposing the biblical patterns or showing the biblical patterns that expose the lies that continue to get communicated. You want to know why? Because this applies in every area of life. You can take these pictures and you can apply it in every area of life. Look, even if you want to take about even if you want to talk about something as simple as the biblical perspective on wealth, do you know how many Christians actually believe that you are ungodly if you are a wealthy person, or you are actually ungodly if you pursue having a better life for your family? Do you understand? The Bible gives us examples. There are biblical models given to us by the Jews, basically, by the Jews, that show us how to be successful in business, shows us God's blessing, his reward when we seek to be diligent in what we do. The problem isn't being wealthy. The problem is the love of money. That's what the Bible condemns. But look, think about how in society money is projected to people, especially in our culture, right? Think about this. Every single villain that we read about in the comics, they're rich people. You ever notice that? They're all rich. People say, well,
Never thought about that.
People say, well, Batman was rich. Well, Batman didn't have a superpower. You think about it, right? He didn't have a superpower. But every single person had these superpowers, that were villains were actually rich, right? And the ones that were real heroes, the old school heroes, had no money to their name, came from poor backgrounds. This is how the enemy works. He makes it to where
Interesting.
He makes it to where people have to apologize or explain to themselves or explain to people why they've been blessed with wealth. The reality of it is Satan is good at this. He does this with everything. Money is just a small example. Look, he does this in every single area. It's like all the things that people look at and say are taboo are all because the enemy has attacked it and man has listened to it because they've ran away from the scriptures.
So what should we do now?
Bro, we do exactly what me and you are doing right now. We work our tails off to expose the truth. And one of the ways we do it is what I keep begging everybody here to do. I'm begging everybody in our audience, study the word. Get to know the word of God and use the word of God to be your guide in everything that you do. Absolutely. Do people going back to the whole riches thing, right? I just look at the life of King Solomon. People don't realize this. Do you think that people showed up to see King Solomon and gave him money just to give him money because he was a king? No. When you look at the story of all of these kings and queens that went to Solomon and continued to give him money on a regular basis, they were giving him money because they wanted his wisdom. They wanted to learn about how to run their kingdoms. Do you think the Queen of Sheba just gave him what the equivalent of $250 million was just to give it out of the blue? Oh, I just want to hang out with you. That's just what I want to do. No, it was done because it was like, I'm making an investment so that I can learn from you on how to better manage my nation because I know about the wealth and the wisdom that you have. If I find out that somebody is filthy rich, am I going to just give them more money just to bless them? No. I'm giving them that money because I want to learn how they got there. All right.
So what should the people who are watching this now, okay? And again, I can't help but I'm kind of freaked out by that lady.
She's crazy, isn't it? She's such an evil woman. I've been following
I'm kind of freaked out that the other side is going to use your evangelical Christianness against you.
Oh, this is the core of it. They're already doing it. All of the arguments that are being formulated against Israel right now are a premise for the attack on the foundation of Christianity.
So how do we fight this?
You fight it by being unapologetic about speaking the truth, but you have to know the truth in order to speak it. And the idea is, if you are not in the Word, if you are not studying, if you are not making yourself familiar with these truths, you're never going to grow.
And part of maybe what I want to stress, and again, this is me coming from the outside looking at that, if she is saying that we want to distance ourselves and represent more against the white evangelical Christians, what should the white evangelical Christians do?
Right.
Or the black evangelical Christians, or all of the evangelical Christians, what should they be doing right now?
Speak the truth. The more you know the truth and the more you speak the truth, the more effective you become at shining light on evil people like this. She is satanically inspired and probably doesn't even know that she's satanically inspired.
Okay. And this is what the churches need to do now.
Yeah, and they're not doing it. They're more concerned about looks. They're more concerned about what people think. They're more concerned about, all kinds of other aspects. They're more concerned about, dotting their I's and crossing their T's. They're more concerned about those things. They're not concerned about what God thinks. They don't want to tell the truth.
So here's the thing. If the other side is saying, we have a problem with you because you're an evangelical Christian.
Yep.
Why should evangelical Christians or their leadership, for instance, be afraid to stand up and say, we are the evangelical Christians? I mean, are we backing away from this?
Yes, because the consequence is severe. The problem is it's becoming a lot more consequential for people to take a stand, and that is precisely why things are happening the way that they're happening. Make no mistake about it. That is exactly why we're seeing what we're seeing. People do not want to go through the problems that are associated with this type of thing. It's that simple.
So should I make a T-shirt saying I'm a white evangelical Christian?
Yeah, they'll all shoot you. You might as well listen. Look, I was talking to some of my team members about this. Right? I tell everybody about these dog tags. I tell them, I say, I want everybody in my team to wear these dog tags. We're going to start giving them out pretty soon here. I want everybody on my team to wear them. But here's something you need to understand. Wearing these dog tags is the equivalent to walking in a highly leftist town with Make America Great hat again. Make America Great Again hat. Your target. They all know what this is when they're wearing it.
Okay.
And they are not happy with that. And it's like but you have to be willing to tell people, hey, I stand for this reason. By the way, for me, it has been that way. For me, in recent times, I've actually been stopped by Jews. Like, wow, I've never seen anybody wearing one of these yet.
Okay, but here's part of what I've been kind of conveying to Christians here as far as I can. Get ready, because again, maybe this is my connection. I'm the Jew. Okay,
Yep.
I've been persecuted because I'm a Jew. I've been hated. I've been murdered. I've been stepped on because I'm a Jew. Now, the reason people do that is because they're fighting against God's plan.
Yeah, they hate
they're
God.
They're fighting against God. But the United States of America has had godly morals, godly ideals. I'm going to say godliness in the core of its country.
100%.
But the more that steps out, the more people like this see godliness as something negative, the more the people who see godliness as something positive are going to be persecuted, not because of anything they did, but because they are aligned with God's plan.
100%.
And what I'm trying to say is this: prepare to be persecuted.
It's already happening. And that's the thing that I'm constantly trying to tell people. It's like it's already happening. It's already happening. And I wish from the bottom of my heart that people understood this. I wish that people recognized how serious it was and how important it is to take a stand regarding these issues. Because right now we're not doing it, and the suffering that is coming as a result of it is immense. And the things that we stand to lose as a result of this is beyond most people's understanding. And I wish people recognized how crazy it
we're
was.
already losing. We're already losing the concept of truth. By the way, and AI is going to kind of erode that concept even more. We're already losing the concept of biblical plan. We're already losing the concept of God created men and women. He created them. Okay, we're already losing all of that already in our public sphere.
It's been lost.
And well, I think there's still or is there still a battle? I mean, do we give up and not go and vote?
No, of course not. Of course we do. We do everything that we can. We have to. If we don't, we're gonna make it worse for ourselves, and that's the problem. It's like we are gonna create a situation for ourselves that's going to destroy our world. If Christians don't take a stand, you know what Christians are doing? Christians are not following the call that God's placed upon their lives.
Okay.
God has called us to do what? He's called us to be the gatekeepers. I mean,
Okay,
like
so-
we could talk about Jewish history a lot, and we could talk about the effects of the crusade on the Jewish people, and we could do all that kind of stuff. But here's the reality of it: it would be way worse for Jews or anybody else for that matter if Christians were not doing what God had told them to do. If it were not for Christians intervening and taking a stand, the Crusades would have never been over.
Okay, so let's go back to where we started this, James. I mean, think about this. You open up the Bible and you see, I'm going to say, prequels, okay, of what's going on today. And I think this has been a fascinating connection between Amalek and what's going on and what happened, and people being, or people standing in God's way, or standing in the way of the plan, the way of the path, okay? And as a result of that, what's going to happen? And you're not going to be blessed if you do that.
Oh, no way. Look. I don't think we spend enough time talking about spiritual laws and the effects that spiritual laws have on us, right?
Okay.
Like I'll give you an example. We talk about money. People come to me, they say, well, I've really been struggling financially. My very first question that I ask them is, are you tithing? Do you tithe? Mm-hmm. And when they say no, then I say,
problem.
start there. Do that for a little while and come back to me.
All right?
Because there are invisible laws, spiritual laws that if not followed, right, you're not gonna follow them. People tell me, well, James, why is it that that's all you want me to do? You don't give me any other info. I'll tell you why. Because most people that don't tithe are also so poor they can't even pay attention. When I say that, meaning they're living paycheck to paycheck. If you take an act of worship with God so seriously that you start adjusting your lifestyle so that you can tithe, that adjustment alone, God will honor and God will bless. I have a friend who lives in North Carolina. None of us have ever been able to guess the income amount that he's making every month. If I had to guess, I would probably guess. Many of us, we were at his house and we went back and forth, and his house, just to give you just his garage is 2,500 square feet. Okay? The room that he has all of his guns, his gun room, is 1,000 square feet.
Whoa.
Okay? So the man's house, I think all said and done, is like 65,000 square feet, not including the underground shooting range and the bowling alley that he was building at the time that I was there, and certainly not including the massive land that he lives on. He is a brilliant man who is extraordinarily wealthy. Okay?
Okay.
We talk about people, the devil, mischaracterizing things. This is where we get the term filthy rich. Why does it have to be filthy, right? But the point is, we guessed how much he makes. We stopped guessing at around $35 to $60 million a month. He's probably making more than that. Reality of it is he's probably making more than that, okay? Even on a bad day, on a super, super, super bad day, he's probably pulling in $400,000, $300,000, $500,000. He's a trader, and he makes a lot of money doing it.
Okay.
And he's very, very wealthy. He's a guy that taught me how to trade. He's brilliant. He's a very, very smart man, okay? He tells this story of how he used to work at Goodyear Tire. That's where he worked for many, many years. Terrible job. Very, very demanding job. The guy was so poor that his idea of taking a break or a vacation with his wife was being able to save 20 cents so that him and his wife could go to the Food Lion, that's the store over there, and buy a soda pop at the end of the week and share a soda pop. That's how poor they were.
Wow.
They're that poor, right? He goes to a guy that mentors him and he says, I want to make my life better and I want to get better.
How do we do that?
Right? Yeah. How do I do this? The guy tells him this, really simple, tithe. Start tithing. Not that you're going to get rich in exchange for tithing, but he just said you need to start there. And if you don't start there, then don't come back to me because I'm not going to talk to you about anything else. So he realizes, I got to start tithing. Mm-hmm. So what does him and his wife do? This is no joke. I am not joking.
They take 2 cents?
They literally take 2 days and they don't eat. They keep feeding their child, their baby at the time, their oldest daughter at the time, because she's a baby at the time. So they keep buying her formula. They take 2 days and they don't eat, and they take that money that they would spend in their eating and put it in a jar. And then the 5 days that they do eat, they're buying little tiny wieners, like cheap, like beans and wieners. right? They're eating nothing.
Okay.
They take that money and every month they tithe it to the Lord. Here. He learns something very quickly. He learns very quickly that the way he prioritizes his income has changed because he recognizes that if he wants something bad enough, he'll do whatever he can to adjust his life to make it happen. It's pretty extreme when you say, I'm not going to eat for 2 days a week.
That's
Okay, so put it this way, 8 days a month, he's not going to eat
James,
in order to do a tithe.
There are two people who are sitting here who would have a problem.
We
not
understand the
eating
extremity of that picture, right?
Okay.
So think about that for a second, bro. Like, he does that. No wonder why he is one of the richest men in the country. No wonder why. Because he did what he knew God had asked him to do. And now, look, the guy is funny. Like, he told me a story. This is just really funny. He told me a story how and this is before the Girl Scouts were all woke and all the other crazy. This is 15 years ago, right? One of the Girl Scouts, I think it was a Girl Scout from his church, knocks on his door and says, look, I've always been behind. I want to get ahead. Can you buy my 5 cookies? My 5 boxes of cookies. He said, where's your order form? He takes an order form. He orders, this is no joke. Like, I am not joking. He orders a semi-truck filled with cookies. Writes a check for like $200,000 to buy these cookies, and then has her do with the cookies whatever she wants. Sell them, do whatever, give them away, but do whatever you want. Can you imagine the kind of difference that guy makes? He sits at a restaurant and he has a meal with somebody at a restaurant, and the lady who's working for, at the time, $8 an hour serves him well, and he basically decides that he's going to tell that woman that Jesus loves her and then give her a $200 tip. Can you imagine the $200? $200 changes that woman's life.
Yep.
For him, it's nothing. For him, it's like, but the point is it started with a very basic principle. And the basic principle was, I'm going to do something that you can't see in the visible. I'm going to honor God in the invisible. And that's the thing that we have to do. We have to do that with Israel. We have to do that with our own lives. We have to do that with our country. We have to do that with our finances. There are so many invisible aspects of what we do on a day-to-day basis that we have to honor God with.
We have to be in God's plan.
Amen. And if we choose to disobey God for the sake of doing something that feels comfortable, come on. I mean, think about it. I would have loved to have been there for that shipment. It would have been amazing. I would have got myself those chocolate peanut butter cookies and the lemon ones. Oh my goodness. Oh, bro, you have to have the Girl Scout version of that. I don't buy them anymore because they've all lost their minds.
There's parts of your culture that I haven't connected to.
Oh, yet. Bro, I believe me, you will love the parts of my culture that you haven't connected to.
Well, I've been here long enough. I know what worlds. Mexican food is now.
Oh yeah. You here in Southern California, you're going to get good Mexican food, very good Mexican food.
And more good Mexican food. More good Mexican food. Yeah,
but you love you're like me. You're a hamburger connoisseur like Dale and me.
Well,
that's something you like.
What I miss right now is a good lamb chop.
Oh man, no one here is going to make a good lamb chop, bro. It's not like
I found a Greek restaurant that does a pretty good job.
I wish we had a little Ben Yehuda over here that we could go to and get some of those lamb chops over there.
Little Tiberius.
Oh my goodness, bro! Could you imagine? In Tiberius, he just reminded me. Oh, that's real. Those are real lamb chops right there, bro. That's how you cook a real lamb.
Cover the microphone. My mouth is watering right now.
I know. You just got me all. How did we go from this to lamb chops? We have to take we did that. I think one of my very first trips to Israel, we actually took some people to Tiberius to have lamb. Ooh, man.
Well, there's a little restaurant in Tiberias that I kind of miss right now. It's called Little Tiberias.
Oh, well, we've eaten there before.
Yeah, we've eaten there.
Actually, me and you have eaten there before.
Yep,
it's beautiful.
Pretty amazing lamb chops.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, it's really good food. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you see, you know the good places to eat, bro. That's good.
You come to my side.
That's actually where lamb tastes like just... the lamb over there that he's talking about, you just put that in your mouth and just close your eyes.
Okay, here's the thing. But the tomatoes the tomatoes taste like tomatoes.
Yeah.
But I just want to maybe kind of finish this. Yes, I do. I miss Israel, and I miss...
The bread over there, by the way, is really good, too, in that restaurant.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, you got me thinking. I want to fly over there just to get... Okay, I'm sorry. I cut you off. Go ahead.
James, can we start flying back?
I'd love to.
I would too. Let's see how we do this. We need to talk.
Yeah, we have to talk about that, man. You're the best tour guide in Israel. We have to do it. We have to take a trip. I know that my friend Greg Denham just came back from a delegation that went over there. And we hope that that'll happen soon.
Yeah, let's get this going.
Anything close to right now, it's tough. I think they've taken a few. They've allowed a few groups to go out recently, but it didn't work out well. It kind of backfired a little bit.
Well, right now they're talking about groups that go out not to tour per se, but to support.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's something to that. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we have to talk. I wonder how Shmulik's doing. Haven't talked to him in a while. Hope all is well. Hope all is well. So, yeah, by the way, on tomorrow's episode of Countdown to Eternity, Greg Denham is going to talk about that trip that he took, that delegation. It'll be fun. We recorded that yesterday. It's a fun conversation. So, okay, well, listen, guys, we are going to jump on locals. We are going to take some questions. We will do that in the next few minutes. So let's pray. David, any final words? Anything you want to?
Well, again, I can't help bring up the hostages. I mean, the quiet in the world is devastating, and Israelis don't really understand what's going on with this. Why is the world kind of so silent about this thing? I mean, think about if somebody, again, I can't help the illustration, came over the border and stole 150 Americans and put them in tunnels and somewhere and it's just awful.
I mean, look, there's a fatigue that settles in, and we saw this happening right before the inauguration of President Reagan. I mean, there was a fatigue that went on. There were people that didn't even want to talk about the hostages in the Middle East, the American hostages in the Middle East. They were very quiet about that. And it was just because they were very fatigued about the discussion. I think with the Jews, it's more than that. I think there's a very
one of the
demonic...
things that I need to remind people: Israel will not stop until this is over.
Yeah, they better not. They better not.
So here's the problem. I mean, when the hostages are not in people's mind, and only what Israel does in order to retrieve the hostages is what's in people's mind, then that becomes a problem.
Yeah. No, I would agree.
So
I would agree.
Don't forget the hostages.
Yeah, we have a lot to pray for. Father in heaven, we just lift all this up to you now, Lord. We do lift up the hostages to you, Lord. We lift up their families. And Lord, if they're still alive, please bring them back, Lord. Even if they're not, Lord, we need these families to have some closure, Lord, and semblance of understanding of what's going on. Lord, we just pray for our soldiers that are out there right now, Lord. Keep them safe, please, Lord. Watch over them and protect them, Lord. Give them wisdom in the things that they're doing, Lord. And Lord, just help this to be over. Lord, that's our prayer. So, Lord, we just love you and thank you. We look to you, Lord, and we ask these things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, you guys, we are going to jump on locals in just a few minutes. So we will see you there shortly. We're going to take a few questions. We won't be long, but should be lots of fun. All right. God bless you guys.
See you soon.